say I really, 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 really enjoyed this documentary.
Oh,
That's
thank
great.
you.
And I have to admit that at first I was like, why do we need to watch this documentary? Can we just remember the greatest president?
Yeah.
But you blew my mind.
Wow, thank you. Awesome. Yeah,
You're
I mean,
welcome.
I blew my own mind in making it, because I learned so much from all these scholars as I was doing the research, and as I kept going deeper, it was just captivating. To-
Hopefully, every moviegoer will say the same thing you just
Right.
said.
That's pretty great.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm a sucker for documentaries. Yesterday, for fun, I was watching the JFK One Day in America. So for me, this
Oh,
stuff's
cool.
like up my alley.
Yeah, awesome. Great.
How did you find scholars? How did you find Thomas and John?
Oh, well, great question. I mean, I've been researching this for 15 years, and I read an article 15 years ago, and then I started doing all this research and reading all the books I could. And one of the books I read was Giants that John Stauffer wrote that talks about Lincoln and Speed. And I did a deep dive into the research, and I looked at all the letters and all of the evidence that was out there. And along the way, I also found Tom, because Tom's kind of the new generation of queer scholars that are taking the torch on this, and he's writing a book about it right now. And so I kind of gathered up all these people that have been writing about this for a long time and brought them all into the documentary. And it was such a warm welcome from everyone, because so many people want to get the story out. They see the power of film and reaching a larger mainstream audience, because this has kind of been in the academic circles. And what's so powerful, about film is it's a visual medium, it's an emotional medium, and so to present the evidence in this idea in film format, I think everyone was really excited to be a part of.
Why do you feel this is important? This documentary to be watched by people.
Look, Lincoln is important. I mean, our understanding of Lincoln is critical. He is still being cited by both parties today, by the way, as this great American who can still help us understand something about ourselves. I mean, his record as president is so great that he is routinely considered the greatest president who ever lived. And guilty as charged, I voted him that way in a poll recently. I mean, his example is one of equality, of democracy, of freedom. He enshrines all the core values. Now, I'm presenting this in this monolithic, monumental way, which is great. We need that. We do need to hold up someone like Lincoln. What this film does, I think, and why it's so important they watch it, is that we expand that notion. We give Lincoln a kind of fuller reading that shows a true love of men. And in the process, I think this uplifts. I mean, I think one of the things you may hear from folks is like, this is taking down someone. It's not. It's bringing up. It's uplifting.
Completely agree with that. I mean, virtually everyone sees Lincoln as the nation's greatest president, but there's been a concerted effort to try to deny that he was also gay, to try to deny that he also had intimate homosexual relationships with Joshua Speed, with David Derrickson, and that didn't make him different as a politician, different as a human being than other major figures in the United States. So it's a way of trying to overcome the profound prejudice against homosexuality, and especially that continues to exist in the United States, as reflected in the Republican Party platform to try to criminalize homosexuality.
Well, I admit I'm guilty of it because I thought the same thing. I was like, why do we need to know about his love life? Why do we need to know about his private life when it's enough with what we know of, the greatest things he did? But I love how in your story you integrated the parallel about sexuality, how it was accepted in the past, and how everything just evolved, and now it's like something to be shameful about.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And what's interesting too is that there are thousands. There's people have estimated there's 15,000 books written about Abraham Lincoln, and there's thousands of writings about he and his wife Mary Todd, and about their marriage and how it's tumultuous. And so they write about his domestic life quite often. But there's a little undertone of homophobia when you bring out this other element of him, that he had these other loves in his life as well. Because we talk about his domestic life frequently. You know, there's people that dedicate their entire careers to it. So this idea that he had these other loves and it's not important to talk about, I think is has a little thread of homophobia in it.
Yes.
I mean, because what's so great about Lincoln is that he is the president of equality. I mean, the 13th and 14th Amendment are his legacy to this country. And whether, it's the Latino or Latinx community, Black Americans, whether it's LGBTQ community, the foundation of equality in this country is all comes from Lincoln's empathy as a human being. And part of that is the loves that he's had in his life.
I love how each one of his heartbreaks makes such a big impact in his life and politics. Which one was your favorite to cover?
Ooh, that's a first heartbreak. First question we've had on Heartbreaks. That's good, because I picture this. I think of this movie as kind of a love story, like a love story. And
Well, I'll go out there and make the unknown case for Elmer Ellsworth. I feel like that's my job today. No, I mean, the fact that Lincoln is running for president and he is still sort of, and he's so aware of what's required of him, and he's literally under scrutiny. People are swarming him in Springfield, and they are coming to see this unknown person. And he's a father of 3 at this point, married, of course. And the fact that Elmer Ellsworth becomes, so taken by Lincoln and vice versa, and this, relationship which we still want to understand more about, but the best way I describe it is a kind of crush. And I talk about where it goes in the film, and that they follow each other all the way through to the end. Elmer Ellsworth, the first casualty of the Civil War. I think it's worth exploring how each stage of Lincoln's life, each of these relationships was so key.
I would say Elmer Ellsworth too. He was crushed when Ellsworth died. It was profound, and he had the courage to be open about the degree to which he was crushed by it. I mean, already a number of other people had been killed. The African Americans who joined on an independent basis. For the war. There had been a number of casualties. And so Lincoln's empathy and his sorrow at Elmer Ellsworth really is a profound moment in his life.
I mean, I'm old school. I think it's Joshua Speed, So, when Speed has to move back to Kentucky and he goes into this deep depression, this suicidal depression, when they had to take razors out of his room because they feared he would kill himself. He was so depressed. And then he goes and visits him one last time before Speed is married. And that's where we get these letters where he writes to Speed and says, "I'm so jealous of you and your new wife. And what's the point of friendship if you're just going to lose friendship?" And friendship, he meant friendship, had a different definition back then. Friendship was much deeper than what we think of friend now. It's an emotional, as John says so eloquently, it's an emotional bond, but it's a physical bond. Yeah. He's losing his soulmate. And as Speed later said, no two men were ever more intimate.
That's right.
That's from Speed's own mouth.
Yes.
So that loss was profound too. But it also allowed him to marry Mary Todd and start his life as a politician, But I think later in life he revisited some of these male companionships that he was always looking for once he was in the White House.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. At the end, I wonder, had those 3 weeks not happened, how had history could have been different?
That's the $64,000 question. I think that had Lincoln not been assassinated, Reconstruction would have turned out much differently. As what actually happened is that Southerners effectively won the war. They created slavery by another name, which is it wasn't chattel slavery, but it was tying them to the land. I mean, the vast majority of African Americans remained in the former rebel states, and they were prohibited from leaving their county because of laws. The penalties for crimes, from modest to large crimes between blacks and whites, were profoundly different in the South. It was, in that sense, the South won the war in retaining the notion that African Americans they were not chattels, but they were essentially serfs. That's the best way to define them. They had no freedom of mobility. That's another way of framing it. And had Lincoln overseen the Reconstruction period, he had a number of Southern friends, but he would have handled it far differently than Johnson.
Well, thank you again for your time. Congratulations with this documentary.
Thank you. Thank you for your time. Really appreciate it. Thank you.